They say the path to wealth is complicated, a game of luck, privilege, and timing. But that's a lie the weak tell themselves to excuse their mediocrity. The truth is brutally simple. Power, money, and influence belong to those who think like rulers, not like servants. In this world, there are two kinds of people: those who wait for permission to win, and those who take what they believe they deserve. This speech is for those who are done being spectators in life. You will learn how to think like a king, act with precision, and build wealth through the oldest and most unforgiving principles of human nature. The problem we're going to solve is why most people remain poor, powerless, and invisible even when they work hard, and how you can break that curse by mastering the psychology of the king. The greatest illusion of society is the belief that hard work equals wealth. It's the lie that keeps the poor obedient, the masses tired, and the rulers powerful. The world convinces you that if you grind long enough, your time will be rewarded. But in truth, time is the prison of the powerless. The man who sells his time can never be free because he has traded the only thing he owns for something that loses value the moment he stops moving. The rich understand this. The rulers of men don't chase hours. They build systems that outlive them. They know that leverage, not labor, is the foundation of wealth. The psychology of the king begins with the rejection of effort as virtue. The servant takes pride in how hard he works. The ruler takes pride in how little he must do to make the world move in his favor. This doesn't come from laziness. It comes from precision. The ruler knows that control is the highest form of intelligence. He seeks to position himself so that his decisions, not his sweat, produce results. Every king has understood this law. If your wealth depends on your presence, you are not rich. You are trapped in a golden cage. The poor think linearly. They see the world as a straight path where every step must be earned. But the rich think geometrically. They see power expanding in all directions at once. The poor man wakes up asking what task he must complete today. The king wakes up asking what structure he can create that will complete tasks for him. The king's mind is architectural. He does not think like a worker who builds one wall a day. He thinks like the one who designs the city, hires the workers, and owns the land they labor upon. This is the brutal simplicity that most refuse to accept. Wealth is not created by effort, but by positioning. You can spend your life mastering a craft, but if you never master the flow of influence, you remain replaceable. The poor chase productivity, the rich chase power. The poor seek to do things right, the rich seek to control the things being done. That is leverage. To multiply your presence through systems, people, and perceptions so that the world works for you even when you sleep. The tragedy is that most people never escape the illusion of fairness. They believe that since effort is noble, effort must lead to reward. But the world does not care about nobility. The market, like nature, is indifferent. It rewards utility. It rewards those who can manipulate structure, not just perform within it. That's why the king looks at the same world differently. When he enters a room, he doesn't see competition, he sees opportunity. He doesn't see individuals, he sees functions. Every man becomes a potential ally, resource, or pawn depending on how their ambitions align. The poor call this manipulation, the wise call it mastery. The servant works for money. The ruler makes money work for him. The servant trades time for income. The ruler trades ideas for ownership. The servant prays for stability. The ruler thrives in volatility. These are not accidents of fate, but choices of psychology. The king understands that wealth demands detachment from effort-based identity. He no longer defines himself by what he does, but by what he controls. That is the first transformation, the death of the worker's mindset and the birth of the strategist. Leverage is not luck. It is the result of seeing value where others see labor. The king studies the hidden systems of dependence. He asks who depends on whom. Who controls the decision that makes others move? He builds power by placing himself at the center of necessity. Everyone around him believes they are making independent choices, but in truth they are serving his structure. His wealth flows not from what he produces, but from what he controls others to produce. This is the nature of true power, unseen, quiet, yet absolute. Even in simple trades, the principle stands. The man who owns the land profits more than the man who tills it. The one who controls distribution profits more than the one who manufactures. The one who owns the platform profits more than the one who performs. Every hierarchy in the world repeats this pattern. To get rich, you must rise from being the effort to being the structure. You must stop asking how to do more and start asking how to make others do more for you. The king understands that systems are the real engines of wealth. He creates mechanisms, businesses, networks, investments that capture value continuously. He builds once, and the system works forever. The poor repeat the same motion endlessly, trapped in cycles of exhaustion, while the rich refine structures that scale. The difference is vision. The poor see a day's wage, the rich see a dynasty. When you think in leverage, every person, every tool, every opportunity becomes a multiplier. Knowledge becomes leverage because it lets you make better decisions. Money becomes leverage because it lets you control resources. Relationships become leverage because they extend your influence. Technology becomes leverage because it scales your reach. The king combines all of these until his power becomes self-reinforcing. The poor resist leverage because it feels unfair. They say, "Why should he earn more for doing less?" But that is exactly the nature of power. To do less while controlling more. The king does not argue morality with the masses. He studies their psychology and uses it. He understands that those who envy will always stay beneath those who act. He does not seek fairness, he seeks advantage. The more he understands leverage, the less he is concerned with appearances. He stops chasing applause for effort. He no longer needs to prove how hard he works because he has learned that the goal is not to be busy, but to be effective. The truly powerful move slowly and think deeply because their influence moves faster than their bodies ever could. Leverage makes time your servant. It turns every decision into a weapon of multiplication. When the poor man sleeps, his progress stops. When the rich man sleeps, his assets work, his systems operate, his influence grows. That is the secret no one tells you. Wealth is not about motion, it is about momentum. The king's world expands without his constant attention because he built it that way. Every empire in history followed this rule. The rulers did not swing the swords, they commanded armies. They did not till the fields, they owned the land. They did not carry messages, they built the roads. Those roads became the veins of their wealth. Their genius was not in their labor, but in their ability to control the labor of others through systems of dependence and belief. So when you see the rich becoming richer, do not mistake it for luck. It is leverage in action. The invisible hand of control guiding the visible hand of work. The king does not wait for the world to give, he designs the world to obey. He stops thinking like a worker asking for opportunity and starts thinking like a ruler creating it. That is why wealth always flows upward. Not because the rich are more deserving, but because they understand what the poor refuse to see. The world is not fair, it is functional. And in a functional world, leverage is law. The poor stay poor because they worship morality over mastery. They cling to the illusion that doing the right thing guarantees the right result, that the world rewards purity and punishes ruthlessness. But the world does not care about your goodness, it responds only to effectiveness. The king understands this truth early, that wealth is not a moral pursuit, it is a strategic one. He learns to separate emotion from execution, to silence the trembling voice that asks, "Is this fair?" and replace it with the question, "Does this work?" The poor seek comfort, the king seeks control, and in that pursuit, he sacrifices the softness of morality for the clarity of results. The foundation of poverty is hesitation. The man who hesitates is not weak because of his ignorance, but because of his conscience. He doubts himself, worries about offending others, and seeks permission to act. The rich man does not. He acts in silence, understanding that power rarely asks to be liked. He knows that every empire, every fortune, every throne ever built was forged in the shadow between morality and necessity. Those who cling to ideals become spectators of history. Those who act without apology become its authors. To the king, morality is a tool, not a truth. He uses it as a mask when it serves him, and he removes it when it restricts him. He knows that society teaches morality to maintain order, not to create greatness. The poor are taught to feel guilty for wanting more, to see ambition as greed, and to treat wealth as corruption. These lies ensure obedience, but the king sees through them. He understands that morality is designed to make the strong doubt themselves, while the weak sleep peacefully in their cages. The moment you detach from this illusion, you step into the mind of the ruler. Detachment is not cruelty, it is clarity. When emotion clouds judgment, decisions lose precision. The poor waste time debating what others will think, the rich waste nothing. The king decides based on impact, not impulse. He observes, calculates, and executes with cold precision. He is not heartless, but he has disciplined his heart to serve his intellect. The emotional man becomes predictable, and predictability is weakness. The detached man becomes unreadable, and unreadability is power. Every man who rises to power must confront the same choice, to be liked or to be respected. The poor crave approval because they confuse being accepted with being valuable. The king understands that approval is a trap. He does not need to be loved, because love from the crowd is temporary and conditional. Respect, however, endures. Respect comes from dominance, from the ability to produce results that others cannot ignore. While the weak fight for validation, the king builds results that silence opinion. When the world sees your power, they will rewrite morality to justify your success. History does not remember the pure, it remembers the effective. The poor believe fairness is strength, but fairness is simply a weapon of control. It keeps people waiting for permission to act. The king knows that fairness is an illusion created by those who already won. He does not waste his life demanding fairness from the world. He shapes the world until it serves him. He does not cry over injustice because he understands that injustice is the natural law of power. The strong always define what is right. The weak complain about reality. The king rearranges it. To detach from morality is to liberate yourself from fear. The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of being misunderstood. These are the bars of the invisible cage. The poor live within this cage, afraid to act differently, afraid to offend, afraid to outgrow their surroundings. The king breaks it without remorse. He acts according to the cold logic of outcomes. He does not aim to be understood, only to be effective. Once he wins, the world finds reasons to justify his victory. Success sanctifies ruthlessness. Wealth, like power, requires the ability to make decisions others avoid. The masses are paralyzed by what-if scenarios. What if it fails? What if they disapprove? What if it ruins my image? The king does not dwell on such illusions. He knows that hesitation kills faster than failure. He prefers to make 10 cold decisions and learn from one mistake than to make none and die invisible. Morality seeks comfort. Power seeks motion. The king knows that stagnation disguised as goodness is still decay. To become wealthy, you must strip away sentimentality in decision-making. Stop asking whether something feels right, and start asking whether it moves you closer to dominance. The poor work hard but stay broke because they act emotionally. They choose security over strategy, decency over dominance. The king understands that results do not care about intentions. The world judges by what you produce, not what you meant to produce. Detachment gives him the freedom to see reality as it is, not as he wishes it to be. The detached mind is dangerous because it cannot be manipulated. The emotional man is easy to control. You can guilt him, flatter him, threaten him, and he will react. But the detached man sees manipulation as data. He does not react, he redirects. His indifference makes others uneasy, because they cannot predict or influence him. That unease becomes power. The rich are calm not because they are kind, but because they are unbothered. Their control over emotion translates into control over outcomes. The king's wealth grows from this emotional discipline. He can endure what others avoid. He can make choices that require sacrifice. He can walk away from deals, detach from people, and destroy what no longer serves his empire. The poor cling to everything out of fear of loss. The king releases everything because he understands that attachment weakens focus. Every empire that survived learned to cut, rebuild, and evolve without hesitation. That is detachment, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of it. There will always be those who misunderstand the detached man. They will call him ruthless, cold, manipulative. But these are the words of those still bound by morality. The king knows that those same people will worship him once he wins. They despise his clarity because it reminds them of their weakness. He does not justify himself. He simply continues to build. The results will explain what words cannot. In this world, effectiveness is the highest virtue. Power is not earned by those who feel deeply, but by those who think deeply. Detachment is not the absence of humanity, but the evolution of it. The king has emotions like all men, but his emotions serve him. They never rule him. He channels passion into productivity, anger into execution, fear into foresight. The poor are slaves to their moods, the rich are masters of their minds. When you detach from morality and attach to outcome, you stop playing by the rules designed to limit you. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop shrinking to fit the comfort of others. You see the world for what it is, a game of control, not compassion. The king plays to win, not to please. He understands that every act of greatness will offend someone. But history does not remember who complained, it remembers who conquered. Power has never been about truth, it has always been about perception. The king understands that the world does not operate on what is real, but on what people believe to be real. The poor live in a constant struggle to prove themselves through action, while the ruler masters the art of appearing powerful before he even acts. He knows that the crowd is not logical, it is emotional. They follow symbols, not evidence. They are drawn to authority, not authenticity. To control perception is to control behavior, and to control behavior is to control wealth. The man who controls the way others see him can control the way they treat him, pay him, and follow him. The poor want to be understood, the rich want to be believed. This is the first difference between failure and fortune. The poor explain themselves, defend themselves, justify themselves. The king does not. His silence carries more weight than their explanations. He knows that mystery is a currency more powerful than clarity. The more people wonder about him, the more they project their own fantasies onto his image. The poor seek to be transparent, the king seeks to be legendary. He shapes his identity like a sculptor shapes marble, every detail intentional, every flaw concealed beneath design. Perception is the throne upon which wealth sits. Before gold is earned, it is imagined. Before power is taken, it is believed. The ruler crafts an image so compelling that the world bends to it. He does not chase validation, because he knows that perception itself generates value. The moment people believe you are valuable, they treat you as such. The poor wait for external confirmation, the king manufactures it. He creates symbols of power, his voice, his presence, his discipline, his silence, and these symbols make others obey before they even realize they have submitted. Society rewards appearances because appearances shape emotion. The man who looks confident will be trusted even if he knows little. The man who looks wealthy will be treated as if he is. The man who carries himself as if he belongs at the top will find doors opening where others are ignored. The king understands this unspoken law. Humans are programmed to respond to signals of dominance. They want to follow someone who looks unshakable, someone who radiates certainty, so he cultivates this aura deliberately. He knows that wealth begins not in the wallet but in the mind of others. The poor, trapped by honesty, refuse to play this game. They say, "I'll be myself and people will respect me." But the truth is that people respect strength, not sincerity. Authenticity without presence is invisibility. The world does not reward your true self, it rewards your strategic self. The king uses perception as a tool of architecture. He designs the version of himself that the world cannot ignore. His gestures, his tone, his expressions, his words, all are instruments of control. When he speaks, people listen, not because they must, but because they feel they should. That is perception at work, an invisible crown placed upon the head of the one who understands human psychology. Wealth is drawn to authority. People pay those they trust to lead them. And trust is rarely built on fact, it is built on feeling. The king projects certainty even when he is unsure. He does not reveal struggle, confusion, or weakness. He understands that the world sympathizes with weakness but does not follow it. The poor crave empathy. The king commands reverence. When he walks into a room, he carries his power like an atmosphere. His silence becomes louder than their noise. The crowd senses it, the subtle gravity of someone who knows who he is. That perception becomes influence, and influence turns into income. The most dangerous mistake the poor make is believing that results come before reputation. In truth, reputation creates results. The ruler builds the illusion of success first, then uses that illusion to attract real success. Investors, followers, allies, and customers all move toward what already looks powerful. The king understands that perception precedes proof. He uses optics as strategy. He dresses like the man who has already won, speaks like the man who expects victory, and acts as if failure were impossible. The world, confused by his certainty, eventually accepts his image as truth. Control of perception is not deception, it is discipline. It is the awareness that most people do not see reality, they see reflections. The king becomes the reflection they wish to follow. He mirrors their desires, their fears, their aspirations. He becomes the figure that makes them feel safe, inspired, or impressed. In doing so, he gains leverage over their choices. When people feel emotionally connected to his image, they no longer question his value. They follow, they invest, they obey. Perception becomes the chain that binds their loyalty. The poor think honesty is a virtue. The king knows timing is. He does not reveal everything at once. He gives pieces, hints, glimpses of greatness, never the full truth. Mystery keeps the masses curious, and curiosity keeps them engaged. The poor expose their plans and lose power. The king conceals his and multiplies it. Every great empire has thrived on controlled illusion. The myth of invincibility, the illusion of divinity, the belief in destiny. The king applies this same principle to his life. He becomes the myth others need to believe in to justify their own obedience. Perception even governs money itself. The value of gold, of currency, of brands. All are collective illusions. Money has no worth without belief. So he studies belief as others study accounting. He learns what makes people trust, what makes them desire, what makes them obey. He crafts messages, gestures, and visuals that communicate power effortlessly. He does not beg for attention, he magnetizes it. The poor chase opportunity, the king creates it by mastering perception. Every gesture the king makes is a calculated investment in how he is seen. He understands that power must be displayed to be believed. Even silence is a form of communication when it comes from authority. His calmness under pressure tells the world he is in control. His composure in chaos convinces others to trust his direction. The poor reveal panic when threatened, the king reveals patience. The crowd interprets this as confidence and submits to his leadership. Perception creates hierarchy. The more people see you as unshakable, the more they position themselves beneath you. They start seeking your approval, waiting for your validation, adjusting to your expectations. You become the center of gravity. Even your absence begins to speak louder than their presence. The king uses this to his advantage. He withholds his energy strategically, so that when he gives attention, it becomes valuable. He turns scarcity into status. The poor exhaust themselves trying to be seen. The king multiplies his value by being seen rarely and deliberately. Control of perception demands restraint. It means knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to reveal and when to obscure. The king never reacts to rumors, criticism, or attacks because reaction gives power to the attacker. He lets time defend him. He understands that image is not maintained through explanation, but through consistency. The poor panic to defend their name. The king lets his legacy do it for him. His silence becomes an armor that no insult can pierce. To control perception is to own reality. Those who control the narrative shape the direction of wealth. The king lives not in the truth of the moment, but in the illusion he designs. His image opens doors, bends opinions, and multiplies opportunities. The world moves not for those who deserve it, but for those who appear destined for it. The poor fight for fairness. The king crafts the story that makes fairness irrelevant. In that story, perception becomes prophecy, and prophecy becomes power, because once people believe you are inevitable, they will help you become it. The king does not rise through chaos by shouting louder than others. He rises because he knows when to speak, when to strike, and when to disappear. His silence is not weakness, it is surveillance. He watches, measures, and waits for the perfect moment, while others exhaust themselves trying to be noticed. The poor speak to be heard, the powerful remain silent to be feared. Noise is the language of the desperate, and silence is the dialect of control. The king moves like a shadow, seen only when he wants to be, felt long before he arrives. The first lesson of power is restraint. Most men lose their advantage because they cannot contain their emotions. They reveal their intentions too early, defend themselves too quickly, and announce their plans before they are real. The king understands that secrecy is a fortress. His enemies cannot fight what they cannot predict. He builds his empire brick by brick in silence, letting curiosity and rumors spread in his place. While others are busy explaining their goals, he is executing them. The poor crave validation for their plans. The king craves completion. He knows that the moment you speak too much, your enemies begin to prepare. But when you move in silence, the world is always unprepared. Strategy is his second weapon. The king never acts from impulse. Every move is premeditated, every decision weighed against its long-term consequence. He does not chase every opportunity that appears before him. He filters them like a general choosing his battles. To him, not all wars are worth fighting. He picks those that protect or expand his throne. The poor waste energy reacting to every obstacle. The king conserves it for the decisive strike. He understands that patience builds precision. The man who can wait becomes unstoppable because time becomes his ally. The poor confuse movement with progress. They run in circles, busy but blind, shouting about their plans and chasing approval. The king is different. He moves with calculation, turning even small actions into meaningful leverage. Every alliance is chosen, every favor calculated, every appearance strategic. He knows that the greatest victories are often won before the first move is made. In the mind, in the plan, in the anticipation of how others will react. His wealth, his power, his influence, all are products of invisible strategy, not visible struggle. Selective ruthlessness is his third weapon. The king is not cruel for pleasure, he is cruel for necessity. He knows that mercy without purpose is weakness, and emotion without control is liability. When he must cut, he cuts deeply. When he must end an alliance, he does it swiftly. When he must assert dominance, he does it publicly enough to be remembered. The poor believe kindness will protect them. The king knows kindness must be reserved for those who have earned it. He does not waste it on those who mistake softness for surrender. His ruthlessness is discipline, the clarity to remove what no longer serves his rule, whether it is a habit, a person, or an outdated idea. This selectiveness is what separates him from the reckless tyrant. The tyrant destroys for ego, the king eliminates for evolution. He understands that an empire cannot be built without casualties. Time, comfort, relationships, illusions. The poor fear loss and cling to everything, even their own limitations. The king embraces loss as the price of power. He sheds what weakens him with cold precision. To him, sentimentality is a luxury for those who can afford failure. The silence of the king confuses the weak, because they mistake stillness for inactivity. But silence is not absence. It is dominance in disguise. While others talk, he listens. While others reveal, he observes. He reads patterns, weaknesses, desires. He knows that power is not about doing more, but knowing more. The poor are noisy because they seek attention. The king is quiet because he already commands it. When he finally speaks, his words land with the weight of thunder because they are rare and deliberate. His strategy is to remain unpredictable. Predictability is the death of influence. Once people can read your next move, they can control you. The king keeps them uncertain, off balance, and guessing. He gives them enough to feed curiosity, but never enough to know his full plan. He uses illusion as armor, sometimes appearing passive while he plots, sometimes appearing weak while he gathers strength. The poor expose their emotions, their goals, their fears. The king reveals nothing but confidence. This unpredictability protects his power because confusion disarms opposition faster than confrontation. Selective ruthlessness extends to how he uses his energy. He does not fight every insult, nor does he chase every opportunity. The poor waste their strength defending pride. The king saves his energy for actions that matter. He understands that not every battle deserves his sword. Some wars are won by patience, others by silence, and a few by destruction. He does not allow emotion to dictate when he strikes. He studies patterns, lets others reveal themselves, and then acts when the odds are inevitable. This is not cowardice, it is efficiency. The king's strategy also includes the art of invisibility. He hides his ambition behind composure, his hunger behind calm, his vision behind stillness. The poor mistake this for lack of drive. But when the storm breaks, they realize too late that he had been building an empire while they were building excuses. His victories appear sudden, but they were born from years of invisible preparation. He knows that the greatest moves are made in the dark, and by the time the world sees the light, his success is already irreversible. Silence makes him powerful because it keeps others projecting. People fear what they cannot understand, and the unknown becomes his shield. They assume, speculate, and talk, wasting their energy trying to interpret him. The king feeds this uncertainty, knowing that mystery is more commanding than transparency. He allows others to underestimate him, because underestimation is the easiest disguise for dominance. When he finally acts, he strikes with such precision that it feels supernatural. The poor call it luck, he calls it timing. Ruthlessness also governs how he builds loyalty. He rewards those who are loyal with abundance and removes those who betray him without hesitation. The poor tolerate betrayal out of fear of confrontation. The king addresses it swiftly to remind others that disloyalty is death. His discipline in this regard builds trust among his followers, because they know that while he may be merciless, he is also fair. The poor confuse fairness with softness. The king defines fairness as order. He maintains order through selective ruthlessness, using fear and respect as tools of stability. Strategy is also visible in how he responds to defeat. When setbacks come, he does not react emotionally. He studies the pattern, learns from the blow, and adapts quietly. His enemies celebrate his silence as surrender, unaware that he is calculating their weaknesses. When he returns, he does not come back the same. He returns evolved, more dangerous, more deliberate. The poor collapse after failure because their pride is fragile. The king absorbs failure as intelligence. To him, every loss is a data point, every betrayal a lesson, every wound a weapon. His silence is filled with listening. He listens not to obey but to understand. He gathers knowledge from everyone, allies, enemies, strangers, because information is ammunition. The poor speak to express, the king listens to dominate. He understands that knowing what others don't gives him an invisible edge. When he finally acts, it appears effortless because his decisions are already fed by countless invisible insights. Selective ruthlessness also governs his inner world. The king is ruthless with himself, his habits, his discipline, his focus. He cuts away distraction the way a sculptor cuts marble, leaving only precision. He does not indulge in mediocrity or comfort. His silence is not only external but internal, the ability to quiet the noise of doubt and fear within. That inner silence becomes his fortress, an unshakable presence that radiates control. Through silence, strategy, and selective ruthlessness, the king creates an aura of inevitability. People begin to believe that he cannot lose, that his victories are destiny rather than design. They attribute divine favor to what is, in truth, the mastery of control. He lets them believe it because perception strengthens his throne. Every calculated pause, every strategic decision, every cold act of precision adds another stone to the structure of his empire. The poor chase recognition. The king crafts legacy through discipline, restraint, and the ruthless art of control. Power does not belong to those who shout the loudest or demand the most. It belongs to those who master themselves before they master others. The king's psychology is not about arrogance, but about inner sovereignty. He does not seek to be liked, he seeks to be respected. He does not chase peace through weakness, but through power. His silence commands attention, his strategy builds empires, and his ruthlessness protects his throne. Every move he makes comes from a place of purpose, not emotion. He has learned that to rule one's world, one must first conquer the chaos within. The poor react, the king responds. The poor seek comfort, the king seeks clarity. The poor give their emotions away freely. The king guards his like treasure. Every step of his journey is deliberate, shaped by discipline, hardened by solitude, and illuminated by purpose. He knows that life will always test him, but he meets each test not with panic, but with calculation. He has made peace with struggle, because he knows it is the training ground of strength. The king stands unshaken, because he understands a simple truth. Control is not about domination. It is about direction. He does not fight to prove his worth. He fights to preserve his will. His victories are silent, his confidence unspoken, and his power undeniable. Where others crumble under pressure, he sharpens himself against it. He becomes a force that cannot be manipulated, because he no longer needs the world's approval to exist. In the end, the king's crown is not made of gold, it is made of control. Control over his emotions, his reactions, his desires, and his destiny. He reigns not because the world gave him permission, but because he took command of himself first. That is the psychology of the king, calm amidst chaos, decisive amidst doubt, and powerful amidst weakness. He is not merely surviving. He is ruling in silence, in strategy, and in absolute sovereignty over his mind and his world.